Working the night shift at Walmart was never my first choice, but it paid the bills. One night, as I was stocking shelves in the electronics section, I noticed a man who seemed out of place. He was disheveled, with wild eyes that darted around the store. He lingered near the back of the aisle, making me uneasy. I kept an eye on him while continuing my work. After a while, he disappeared, and I hoped he had left the store. But then, I heard a faint rustling sound behind me. I turned around and saw the man crouched behind a display, watching me with an unsettling grin. My heart raced as I backed away slowly, trying to keep my composure. I went to the front of the store to alert my manager, but when we returned, the man was gone. We searched the aisles but found no trace of him. I was shaken, but tried to convince myself it was just a harmless encounter. The next night, I saw him again, this time lurking near the employee break room. He was staring at the door, and when he saw me, he quickly walked away. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I reported him to security, but they didn't seem overly concerned. Things escalated when I found a note in my locker the following night. It was a crude drawing of me with the words, "I see you," written underneath. I felt sick to my stomach and immediately reported it to my manager. They took it seriously this time and reviewed the security footage. The footage showed the man sneaking into the employee area and placing the note in my locker. The police were called, and they managed to identify him as a homeless man with a history of mental illness. He was arrested, but the experience left me terrified. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched and eventually requested a transfer to a different store. Even though the man was no longer a threat, the memory of his creepy grin and the note in my locker haunted me for months. One evening, I was doing my usual grocery shopping at Walmart. It was around p.m., and the store was fairly empty. As I walked through the aisles, I noticed a woman who seemed distressed. She was looking around frantically, as if searching for something or someone. I approached her to see if she needed help. She explained that she had lost her husband in the store and couldn't find him. I offered to help her look, and we split up to search different sections. After a while, I found it strange that there were no announcements over the POS system about a missing person. I returned to the front of the store to report the missing man, but the employees seemed puzzled. They said no one had reported a missing person. Confused, I went back to find the woman, but she was nowhere to be seen. I searched the store and even the parking lot, but she had vanished without a trace. Feeling uneasy, I decided to leave. As I walked to my car, I saw a police car pull into the parking lot. Curious, I waited to see what was happening. The officers went inside, and after a few minutes, they came out with the woman in handcuffs. She was screaming and crying, insisting that her husband was missing. Later, I found out from the news that the woman was mentally ill and had been reported missing by her family earlier that day. She had a history of wandering off and creating stories about a missing husband. The whole situation left me feeling disturbed and deeply saddened. I couldn't stop thinking about how real her fear seemed and how easily she could have been overlooked. It was a stark reminder of how fragile our minds can be and how quickly reality can blur into fiction. I worked the night shift at Walmart for several years, and though I had my share of odd encounters, nothing compared to the night of the disappearing act. It was a quiet shift, and around a.m., a man entered the store. He was average looking, wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face. He wandered the aisles for a bit, picking up random items and then putting them back. Something about him seemed off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. He eventually approached me and asked where he could find the restroom. I pointed him in the right direction, and he thanked me before heading that way. 20 minutes passed, and I realized he hadn't come out yet. Concerned, I went to check on him. I knocked on the restroom door, but there was no response. I called out, but still nothing. Finally, I got the janitor to unlock the door, and to our shock, the restroom was empty. We checked the security footage, and it showed the man entering the restroom, but never coming out. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. We searched the entire store and the parking lot, but there was no sign of him. It was as if he had just disappeared. The police were called, and they conducted a thorough search and investigation. They even brought in dogs to track his scent, but it ended abruptly at the restroom. The case baffled everyone, and the man was never found. His disappearance remains a mystery to this day. The incident left me with a lingering sense of unease. I often wondered if the man had planned his disappearance, or if something more sinister was at play. Working the night shift after that was never the same, and I constantly felt like someone was watching me. It was a slow night at Walmart, and I was working in the toy section. Around midnight, a woman came in with her young daughter. They were looking for a birthday present, and the little girl immediately gravitated towards a doll that had just been put on the shelves, a beautiful, vintage-looking doll with glass eyes and a porcelain face. The woman seemed hesitant, but eventually agreed to buy it. As I was ringing them up, the little girl clutched the doll tightly, staring into its eyes. After they left, I didn't think much more about it until a few days later when the woman returned, looking exhausted and frantic. She demanded to speak with a manager, claiming that the doll was cursed. She explained that since buying it, her daughter had been acting strangely, talking to the doll as if it were alive, waking up in the middle of the night screaming, and saying the doll was whispering to her. The woman begged us to take the doll back, saying it had caused nothing but trouble. The manager reluctantly agreed, and the woman left, looking relieved. We placed the doll back on the shelf, but something about it felt off. It seemed to watch us as we walked away. That night, strange things began happening in the store. Items were found in different places than where they were left, and employees reported hearing whispers when no one was around. The doll seemed to move on its own, always ending up in a different position from where it was left. We tried to ignore it, but the occurrences became more frequent and disturbing. One night, I found the doll in the break room, sitting on a chair as if waiting for someone. The air felt heavy, and I could have sworn I heard faint laughter. Unable to take it anymore, we decided to remove the doll from the store. The manager took it to the back room, intending to throw it away, but it disappeared overnight. No one knew where it went, and the disturbances stopped as suddenly as they had started. Though the doll was gone, the memory of those unsettling nights lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling that the doll was still out there, waiting to be found by another unsuspecting family. The experience left us all wary of seemingly innocent toys and the potential darkness they could harbor.